If you go from doing 2 or 3 loans a month to 18 to 20 loans a month, some people that are doing 2 to 3 might think that 18 to 20 is impossible. It's not impossible, but you've got to build the building blocks in order to get to that, and you got to have a team.
And in a lot of cases, we get sort of drug around by the day. You're miles ahead of your competition when you come into that day knowing that I'm going to stay focused in this lane of business. Today, we're joined by Joey Ciaglia, top loan officer in Las Vegas, Nevada. Hope you enjoy the video, and make sure to hit the subscribe button, like the video, and send me any comments that you have. Well, today I have with me Joey Ciaglia. Joey, welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So look, I want to jump past a lot of the basic stuff. I'm not here to ask you the simple questions. I really want to dive into the psyche and the mindset of you as first of all, let's just set the stage here. You are a top loan officer in the city of Las Vegas, highly successful, very good at what you do. And I think that what people really want to hear more about is how you got there, right? In terms of just the day-to-day and how the mental aspect of the business. So again, welcome and thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Always great to talk to you.
Yeah.
Legend.
Oh, wow. Look at that. Thank you. So I'm going to start off by just asking you, can you share that moment in your career? Because your career, we worked together a while back.
Yep.
And I think that you were just starting to build some momentum in the business, right? And so I want you to share that moment where you realized that you could be successful in this business.
It was probably, funny enough, it's a conversation with Tim Dybert probably. I got in the business around 1999, and my brother and my dad and I had our own little shop here. And then, like a lot of other companies, when 2008 rolled around, we toughed it out, we made it through there, but my dad was really getting to a point where he wanted to retire. You know, the business was struggling at the time. So I left for maybe 2 years, just pursued some other avenues, and they were great. You know, I got a lot of experience. I went the corporate route for a while, which I took a lot of what I learned in the corporate world and applied it to the day-to-day in the mortgage business, even though technically independent contractors. But I learned a lot from those businesses when I took a little hiatus for a few years. Got in conversations with Tim. That's when I met you and came over here. And it was really at that moment that I realized that there was a need for good loan officers in this town. I watched a lot of fly-by-night guys come in the business. You know, they come in for refis, and I really built my strategy around that time where we have these refi, you know, increases in refis, and I'm sure we'll get into it, but I'll kind of fill you in on what my strategy is during those times.
Yeah, but I think what I really want to hear you say though is I want to understand that moment when you said, "Wow, I'm really good at this, and I can be very successful, and I'm better than most of my competition." Was there a moment when that sort of hit you right between the eyes?
Yeah, it was probably you know, because when I got in the business, I was only 19 years old when I got in this business, and I'm 44 now, and I think it was probably mid-20s because I struggled in the beginning with how is anybody going to get a loan from this young kid who probably doesn't even have a loan himself, and why would I take financial advice from this kid?
Good point.
But as I got more comfortable and you gain that confidence, it was probably in my mid-20s when I realized that this is a very viable business. This is an extremely lucrative business if you do it the right way. And so what I started doing is working on my salesmanship. And that's probably that's when I turned the corner. My dad was a big part of that because my dad used to tell me, he said, "You have no idea how good you are and how good you can be. You just got to believe in yourself." And so I think I took that mid-20s, and then I really started to hone in on the salesmanship and the relationships, and that was really the turning point.
Did that realization that you could be successful in this business, how did that propel you forward? You mentioned focus on salesmanship, but was there anything else that really sort of said, okay, I'm going to take this to the next level, and here are some things that I'm going to do to make that happen?
Yeah. You know, I think anybody that gets in this business and sees how lucrative this business can be, if that's not a motivator enough, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
If that doesn't really get you moving in the right direction, then really nothing will. But, you know, for me, it was, I can sell anything, right? I was just telling you about this crazy purse stories, you know, selling these bags for a couple $100,000. I can sell anything, but the salesmanship for me, it became more of a soft sell than a hard sell. And it was more about building a relationship with that client so you can establish that trust right out of the gate. And then the business is easy after that. Once you've established that relationship, you've established that trust. And even with agents, it's the same thing. I approach agents the same way I would approach a client because, I started learning an agent is they're trusting you with their paycheck. If that deal doesn't close, if we don't get that deal done, they're not getting paid. And so I really kind of went into every deal with that is I've got two clients in this transaction. I've got an agent and I've got a buyer. And if I can build that trust, really, it's an unstoppable team. So that really was how I started to build my business from mid-20s was just the relationships and what I was building with each one of those clients and the agents.
Yeah. So anytime I'm around you, the sense I get is I get a real sense of confidence. You have, I would say, sort of, I don't want to say a toned down demeanor in that you're not overly animated, you're not overly aggressive, but you're very confident in your approach. And I think that comes through.
Well, I appreciate that. It's a compliment. Yeah, I work hard at that. I think this business can be extremely stressful if you let it get to that point. And I have people say to me quite frequently, they're like, you just never seem to get rattled. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't. You even when the sky is falling in a transaction, you seem to find this light at the end of the tunnel. And I think my upbringing has a lot to do with that. I had my brother went through a really traumatic experience when we were younger, and it sort of I became the older brother overnight, if that makes sense. He had a terrible accident, and I sort of used that to fuel what I do in this business, because at the end of the day, nobody's dying in this business, right? We might think we are sometimes, but there's always a solution. And I've really just kind of worked on that over the years to try to spread that to the people around me, that if you just keep a cool head, work together, and we'll look for solutions, it always wins.
Yeah, and that's part of the confidence that you give, whether it's so you have the two customers, your borrower and of course the real estate agent, yep. And they sense that in you and they feel comfortable placing that trust in you, right? So let me see. So if I was to shadow you around for the day, what would I say was your most defining personality trait? Because I believe that we all, obviously this business is full of personalities,
yeah,
and some stronger than others. But I think there's something within us all that really gives us that edge, that advantage, and it's different for everybody. But if I was to walk around with you all day, what would I say is your most defining personality trait?
Probably my ability to adapt to different types of people. I have a lot of agents tell me, they'll say, you have this unique ability that you can do a loan for the union blue collar guy, and you could do a loan for the CEO of MGM if you had to. You just have this wide range of personality skills to adapt to multiple groups of people. And I think that that's incredibly important. And that's another thing I try to work really hard on, because you got to know your audience. Yep. You cannot talk to the CEO of MGM the same way you're talking to, a food server or a cocktail server or something like that. It's just a different dynamic. And I think that that's something over the years, as you get more confident in the business side of things, that's really what's helped me be successful, is learning how to adapt to those different groups.
That's a great point, because you're right. We come across it's a cross section of people like no other business really in my my adventure here. This is a very unique industry that puts you in front of just a completely every day could be completely different. One customer to the next is completely different.
Yeah. It's, if you're an agent, right, and you sit down and I'm gonna show houses to you, and I start asking about what's important, do you 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, and you're answering those questions. From our side of the business, I think we have it a lot more difficult in the questions we have to ask, because the first question I'm sitting down and asking you is, what's your social security number? How's your credit? Or do you have any money in the bank? These are extremely personal questions, and there's a finesse to it, right? There's a way to do it, and I think the good ones have figured out how to connect with people and get those answers.
So so let me ask you this question. So do you think that because there's a certain amount of humility that takes to engage with people, to be sensitive to those issues. I mean, I've been in loan applications where the husband and wife did not know what was going on, right? One knew something, the other didn't know. You get that look like, what did you just, where's that money?
Yeah.
So would you say it's confidence or humility that plays a greater, you think both equally?
I think it's both. I think that the humility is a huge piece of it. I think it's a great word for it too, because if you are talking to, I always try to remember, I do this every day, right? Multiple times a day, all day, every day of the month. I'm talking to somebody who might only do this whole transaction twice in their life. So I have to really sort of take a step back and read who I'm talking to, see where I need to start, how slow do I need to get there? And like you just said, the humility piece as you're going through is always something that is the most important piece when you're delivering that initial. And then what I usually try to do is find some sort of commonality. Maybe it's golf. I don't know. Maybe the wife likes something that I happen to know something about. So I usually try to go down those roads where you make it more of a conversation versus me just asking you, who do you bank with? How much is in your account? How much money do you make? I turn the whole thing into a conversation. It makes people more comfortable.
And that's the right way to do it, because look, there's a process here. It takes anywhere between 60 to 30 days. And you're with these people on this journey. And as you said, it's one of the most important, the largest single transaction that they may ever make in their life. And so I find that building that rapport and that relationship, establishing that relationship early also helps me when things get a little rough.
Absolutely.
Because there's going to be, not every deal goes smooth, and there might be a point in that transaction where you have to come to them with an issue that has to be solved. And the fact that they're comfortable and trust you early on, I think really helps you through those situations.
For sure. If all the deals were easy, I wouldn't have any gray hair at all, but I do. But I think, equally as important as running a smooth transaction is your ability to deliver the bad news if you have to.
Yeah.
And, usually when you deliver bad news, you've got to deliver solutions with it. So I think that that's important. And most of the agents that work with me, they know that most of the time the deals are going to go smooth, because I think as a company, we do a pretty good job of vetting out the hurdles before they even become an issue. But they also know if there's an issue, I'm going to let them know right away, and then we're going to figure out a solution. It's, how many times have you heard in this business, in the 11th hour, right? And it's not even the 11th, it's the 25th hour.
That's right.
And that's when it blows up, and it should never, ever get to that point.
Well, it sounds so simple, but yet it's an issue. It's a problem, and I think that's what sets you apart. I want to switch gears a little bit here. So, obviously, to get to the level that you're at, there's sacrifices. I want to know, what sacrifices have you made to get to where you are in your career? And looking back, would you say they were worth it?
So I've made a lot of sacrifices. My family, I have 2 small children. I'm married. I have an incredibly supportive wife of the industry too. She knows how taxing it can be. And it's not that way for everybody, because you have to be willing to put the work in. So Saturday morning, if I get a phone call, they need a pre-approval, I'm going to the office. I'm going to do it on a Saturday. I'm going to do it on a Sunday, because if I don't, somebody else will. And I can't tell you, how many times I've taken a call at 10 o'clock at night.
Sure.
And you might get the look, and then the conversation is, if I don't answer, somebody else will, and that person's going to get the deal. And that's how I support my family, is through this business. So for me, the sacrifice has been, I'm working 24/7. If somebody calls me and I'm not in the shower, I'm answering the phone. And I think that you have to commit to that level if you want to get to a certain level. And maybe you don't want to get to that level. Maybe you just kind of want to cruise through and you can make a great living. But if you really are looking to maximize the potential of this business, I think you have to be willing to make those sacrifices.
Yeah, and you touched on something very important. I've always said I give credit to my wife whenever that opportunity arises, because we know that without their support, none of it's possible.
Absolutely.
It becomes a challenge. And I think when the focus and being, this business is full of rejection,
yeah.
ups and downs. And now if you have to go home and face challenges there too, I think it becomes very difficult to do this business effectively.
Yeah, and it's time management too, really. That's another thing that's been really difficult to I won't say master, but there's such a level of discipline in this business. Like I have a schedule every week and I keep the same schedule. And one of the things I've learned, throughout my career of just doing this is you have like A level tasks and B level tasks. The B level tasks are the ones that I feel can pull you away from production. So having a team that's a capable, great team is it's so important.
It sure
that.
Is. Absolutely.
So if you go from doing 2 or 3 loans a month to 18 to 20 loans a month, some people that are doing 2 to 3 might think that 18 to 20 is impossible. It's not impossible, but you've got to build the building blocks in order to get to that. And you got to have a team.
Yeah.
So I feel that the more tasks that take me from the A and pull me into the B, the less my production is going to be. So I'm focusing on building that team and the B tasks so that I can focus on the A, because that's where I'm going to thrive. I'm going to go out and build the relationships and sell. And, not everybody's built for that.
Well, you have a strategy and it's thought out. I think in a lot of cases, we get sort of drug around by the day.
Yep.
Which is filled with problems, landmines, issues, things that take you from.
You mean those come up in the is this?
Right. So I think you are miles ahead of your competition when you come into that day knowing that I'm going to stay focused in this lane of business, and whatever happens over here, I'm going to just sort of disregard because I can't be taken off track over here. And I think that's great advice.
You have to do that. I mean, that's the discipline piece of it, I think.
Yeah.
But not that those things are important. They have to be.
Yeah.
That could be the difference between closing a deal and not closing a deal. But as long as you can delegate and train the people that are helping you with those B tasks, that's how you can really grow the business.
There it is. Yeah, it's definitely a team effort. I talked a little bit about ups and downs. How does rejection or failure impact you?
I kind of like it. I don't know. Is that weird?
No, I love it.
I kind of like it.
Let's dig into that a little bit.
Okay, because here's the deal. You're going to get your shot eventually. And so when you do get the rejection, maybe it's just an agent that says, hey, I've got a loan person. And I respect that because I know how hard I've worked to build the relationships that I have. And I don't like when other loan officers try to take my agents.
That's right.
So, but that also keeps me sharp because the minute you get complacent, somebody will come in and take that agent. So I'm constantly trying to elevate my game. I don't care if it's an agent I've been working with for 8 years. I treat them like it's the first deal I'm getting from that one I've been going after. And when that one gives me the shot, my whole team is on alert. Hey guys, this is the first deal with this agent. Let's show them what we can do. Because they're not going to know. So then the whole team is firing on all cylinders. But I like the rejection because there's a lot of agents in the group that I work with that they didn't give me a shot the first time around. But the better you do for other, they all talk.
Mm-hmm.
Hey.
Oh, yeah.
I used Chris on this deal. He was unbelievable. You should give him a shot. Okay, maybe I will give him a shot. And then that's how, you start building your sphere around you. And that's when all the leads start coming in.
Yeah.
But I kind of like getting turned down on that first shot because when they do give me when finally I get that opportunity, I'm going to put everything I have into it. It's going to be a perfect transaction. And that's when you can kind of look at them and just say,
yeah, told you so.
This is how, yeah, I don't want to say that because,
yeah,
but it's that calm confidence that you can have knowing that when you get that shot, you're going to perform.
So what I'm hearing you say is that rejection becomes a challenge to you.
It's fuel.
And you love a challenge.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's fuel.
And you have to, again, in this business, again, talking about, achieving a certain level. If you can't handle that rejection day in and day out, the ups and downs of the business, it'll tear you down.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. What, were you always this way? Or, we talked earlier about kind of your career and your salesmanship and the different things you learned along the way, but was there ever and maybe it was going back to your brother and what he went through, but was there a mind shift at any point for you?
I've kind of always been wired that way, just from my parents telling me when I was younger. I played sports growing up. Hockey was probably my best sport. It's what I went on to play in college. And I always kind of gravitated towards the pressure positions. Like I was a pitcher, in high school.
Yeah.
I was a goalie in hockey. And my parents were always like, why do you always end up in these pressure positions? And for me, it was just kind of natural. I liked that. I liked the challenge of it. And so I've kind of always been that way. My brother getting hurt definitely had something to do with it, because it was tough. He had a traumatic brain injury, then a terrible jet ski accident when we were at camp. And so this happened when he was 15 and I was 12, which is a really difficult time when you're growing up. You're like, boys are coming into puberty and kids can be really cruel at that age. And, my brother went from being like this star athlete at school to, having to learn how to walk and talk and everything all over again. So essentially what happened is we sort of flipped roles. I kind of became the older brother overnight. And so he was having a really hard time. So he kind of tagged along with my friends. He was, kind of integrated into our group. And that, I think I was forced into maturity at a young age. I was only 12 years old. And so you grow up really quick overnight when you go through a traumatic situation like that. And, we're blessed because my family, I feel like people that go through these traumatic experiences, the family either breaks apart, mom and dad can't handle it or whatever. Our family, thank God, we became closer. We're still extremely close. My parents, my brother, they all live here. I see them pretty much every day. And so I think a lot of that molded me into a maturity that when I became 19 and 20 years old, I could be a loan officer and speak to somebody maturely about their finances. So it had a lot to do with it.
Yeah, you had a head start, really, and it was forced upon you to some degree, but you stepped up to the plate.
Yeah.
Right. And
sometimes you got to do that, right?
You sure do. Do you have a mentor, or has mentorship or some sort of a role model played a part in your career?
My dad, for sure. I had the pleasure of working with my dad for many years, which is actually, it could be a really great experience, or it could not be a great experience. I remember he used to tell me, obviously you're in your 20s, you're in Las Vegas. It's easy to go out and have some fun. And my dad would always tell me, I don't care what you do the night before, but you better answer the bell. And like, there were probably nights I slept in my car in the parking lot because I was so afraid that I'd be late to work the next day. But definitely, my dad, we're very much alike in a lot of ways. And he was a salesman. I learned a lot from him, and he really kind of kept me grounded through the whole thing. And I think I learned a lot of that discipline from him. So by far, Dad.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, because that can go horribly wrong.
Horribly wrong.
And it doesn't take a lot to get it that way.
Right.
And so congratulations to you.
Thank you.
That you have that relationship. So, one of the things for me, there's things that keep me up at night. Obviously, you run a business, I run a business.
Yours is a lot bigger than my business.
You know what?
That would keep me up at night too.
I might be up a little longer. But what is your biggest fear about the industry, and how do you manage that?
I think the thing that's probably on all of our minds is the potential for automation one day. Like maybe our positions become obsolete in 5 to 8 years from now. I have no idea. This AI thing concerns me a bit. I think as the technology advances, but then, I feel like you're always going to have that demographic of people that still want to pick up the phone and call somebody and talk to somebody and have somebody educate them on the process versus some sort of software doing everything. But I think I think we're extremely lucky. I'm very excited about Vegas in the next 5 years. I think we're going to have tremendous growth here. I think that, with this new administration, we'll see what happens. There's got to be some changes on the horizon, hopefully good for our business. Interest rates moving in the right direction. But, the growth here is what excites me.
Yeah.
You know, somebody asked me last year, they said, what's your number one referral source? I said, oh, that's easy. Gavin Newsom. Just pushing them over, right?
Governor of
But,
California.
Yeah. So, you know, I think the automation is probably what concerns me the most of are we going to be replaced by robots someday? I don't know, doing mortgages, but.
Well, I've talked a little bit about that. And for me right now, I think you have to embrace the technology, artificial intelligence. I can tell you that it has created some incredible efficiencies for me and my team.
Yep.
Without impacting the actual business that we do, right? Or, you know, injuring that process. And I do believe that, at least for now, for the foreseeable future, that this is still a relationship business.
Can I ask you that question?
Please.
I mean, running the incredibly successful business that you have, what is it that keeps you up at night? You know, what are your biggest concerns for the business moving forward?
Well, I'd tell you, I probably keep them in separate categories. I would say, from the business perspective, it's obviously it's competing. It's the kind of need to continue to grow the organization. That's a real focus of mine, and something that I think is critical to any organization's success. There is attrition in this business. People come and they go. We've lost tens of thousands of loan officers in the business, just simply haven't renewed their license.
Yeah.
So the importance of continuing to grow with quality people in the right way. That's one thing that is keeps me up at night. The other thing is, for me, it's about the culture.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, that's huge for me. And my fear is that the people around me don't understand the culture that I'm trying to build,
right,
and aren't able to implement and handle situations the way that I would want them to, because that impacts everybody.
Yeah. I mean, I worked for you for many years here, and you do run a great culture. So seeing the culture built in a mortgage organization where you have a lot of independent contractors, if you will, and then if you go to like a corporate environment where everybody there is on payroll, I noticed that the culture is a little bit different. So has that been hard for you to build a culture in an independent contractor environment?
Absolutely.
I've always admired that, and I wondered how you did it.
So first of all, you have to be passionate about it, and you have to enjoy it, right? It's something that you have to really like. And I think what I've tried to do is create an environment that is collaborative, but brings people into, it's not a forced situation. Nobody has to do it, right? Nobody has to be on these calls.
Right.
So you've got to bring value, you've got to bring content, you've got to bring creative information. And that's really at the center of all of it, is just having something interesting for people to go to and to hear and to listen to. And I think that's the best way. But you know what, man, look, this is about relationships, and those are important to me. If you said, hey, Chris, I want to join your organization, but I'm not really interested in building relationships with people,
not a good fit.
Not a good fit, you know? And I think that's really at the root of that culture. But before you turn the table on me, I got to keep these questions going.
Yeah, I was just curious. Thanks for answering.
No.
I've always wanted to ask you that.
Yeah. You know, one of the things, you know, obviously we talked a little bit earlier about the support, not only at home, but at work, from your team and the people that support you. So, you know, what do you believe is kind of the key to maintaining strong, positive relationships with those people that support you so well?
Respect. You know, it's really easy to lose sight in this business of whose fault is what, or you're pointing the fingers at somebody else, and you just absolutely cannot do that. There is no room for that. We're all on the same team. We're all working towards the same goal. So I've just always had the utmost respect for any kind of support staff, whether it's, you know, my guy, Nick, that's my right-hand man, or our processing staff. These are the ones that really keep the wheels going. I mean, I'm selling. That's my job's to bring the business in, and then I'm hands-on with the client all the way through. But I got to have that. So I've just always really focused on that respect, mutual respect between us. You know, I've had one disastrous situation in my career, which hopefully I'm never in this again, but I'll never forget this. It was a Memorial Day weekend. It was probably 3 years ago. And a loan officer came into the organization from outside. And unfortunately, he wasn't the easiest person to get along with. I had 34 loans in the pipeline that were closing that month. And my head processor just walked out.
Oh, boy.
just walked out. Thankfully, another gal was able to step in and handle it. But I single-handed watched the disrespect between him and her that just crushed everybody else around.
Mm-hmm.
And I would never want to be responsible for something like that. So I think in my career, I've probably worked with maybe 6 or 7 processors total, and they've been fantastic all in their own way. And I have unbelievable relationships with these people just because for me, that respect piece is the biggest.
Have you ever had to check yourself and kind of slow down a little bit? Because it can get intense, right? There's a lot of pressure.
I probably had to check myself, internally. I would never let somebody, that old saying, duck in a pond? Ever heard that?
Yeah, I think so.
You see the duck floating on top of the water.
Oh, yeah.
And it looks normal, but then underneath their webbed feet are going like this. This business is like that every single day. So I try to be the duck in the pond where I'm not, in a frenzy. Everybody gets upset, like sometimes we get conditions and you're just like, come on, this seems so ridiculous. But if you take a step back and realize what the end result is, maybe it's not so ridiculous. But I've definitely, and the other thing is like, I like to surround myself with people that are smarter than me. And I think you're a really successful guy. You probably know that more than anyone.
That's important.
Yeah. I don't have to know it all. And I don't know every guideline. I mean, I'm constantly learning every day and reading these things. So for me, it's usually not having to check myself, but if I do have to reach out on an issue, it's, hey, why are we doing it this way? Because they probably know something that I don't even know.
Yeah.
And so that's always worked for me.
Yeah. What would the people, the support team there, what do they like most about you?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe my personality. I'm a pretty easygoing guy. I'm pretty easy to get along with. I treat everybody with respect. I don't treat anybody poorly. Probably that. I'm just a really easy guy to get along with, especially in the workplace.
So, in a business that really demands a lot of confidence, how do you balance strength versus being approachable? And that goes to your support staff as well, but just in general, right? You've got to be this strong individual, but yet you have to be approachable. Is there something that you think about in terms of balancing that?
Yeah, I think that's part of the secret sauce, right? There is a very fine line. I know a lot of guys in this business that have that. It's the arrogance, right? Mm-hmm. And it's, and you know who they are, and you don't want to be that way. So for me, it's building in the humility with the confidence of, I know what I'm doing. I don't know everything. I can't tell you how many times I've said that, but maybe I lose a deal. Maybe I lose a deal to another loan officer that doesn't have as much experience and is telling them something that I know is not going to happen. But I'm never going to come out and say, this is never going to happen. You're going to be calling me in 2 weeks. It's more a conversation of, listen, I've been doing this a long time. I've never heard that before. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's going to happen. But if you really feel like you need to go and vet it out, do that. But just keep me in your back pocket and let me know if there's anything I can do to help you. Mm-hmm. And oh, by the way, if you want me to take a look at the paperwork to give you an honest opinion, I'll do that. That one little thing goes a long way with people, because then they realize that, hey, this person does just want to help me out. And if I lose a deal to somebody that just has a better deal, I can take that. But if I lose a deal to somebody that's not telling the truth and then they pull the rug later, that's the thing. That's probably the one thing that gets me the most in this business.
Yeah, but you know what? Your confidence and your ability to let that deal go and just to have an honest conversation with those people involved, I think that's you, and that's the balance, right? It doesn't get to ego. Yep. It's confidence. It's you're assured, but yet you're not letting it go to an ego situation where it can really injure relationships in the long term.
Absolutely, yeah, it happens. We go against some big lenders out there, and sometimes they have to hit numbers. And sometimes there's nothing you can do, if you just can't get there. But I feel like it's the way you graciously bow out of a transaction, which is just as important as going into a transaction.
That's a great point. And that really stands out to people.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many people in my career, even those that from my seat, it would be maybe a recruiting opportunity, and people went another direction, and then they decided, hey, you know what, I am going to give AWM a chance, or I'm going to come to work for you. I think how you handle that and how you kind of leave those doors open, that's really important.
Yeah. You know, that honesty has taken me very far, you know, and I feel like it's the best policy. And a quick story, I was in your office working as a loan officer for you, and I had a gal come in. She worked at the Venetian. We sat down in your conference room, and I'm going over everything, and I just looked at her and I said, do you think you're ready to buy a house? She said, I don't know. That's why I'm here. And I said, well, it might not be what you want to hear right now, but I don't think you're ready. And so I still have, this was probably 10 years ago, and I still have a relationship to this lady, with this lady, because she was in tears because she was feeling the pressure that she had to do something. And I told her, you don't have to do anything. You're not ready to do this. This is what I like to see happen. Come back and see me in 6 months. She did. We bought a house out in Tuscany, and I've done 2 refis for her, and I've probably done, I don't know, 8 loans for Venetian employees that she referred over. So that one conversation, just being honest of, you're probably not ready to do this. Let's not force it. All the business I got from that one conversation was huge.
Man, that's a great story, and really sort of, I think it really tells a lot about you, not only as a loan officer, but as an individual. So yeah, that's a great one. Well, I'm going to end with this last question, and it's not like the others, but I got to ask it. I'm sitting in front of you here. One piece of advice, if you had to give somebody one piece of advice that would maybe be new to the industry or thinking about getting into it, what would it be?
God, that's a tough question because that could go so many different directions. I'll give an example of it.
Okay.
Okay. So there was a young guy who worked at Wells Fargo, and he came in. He was becoming a retail loan officer, and just one of the nicest human beings I'd ever met. I wanted to help this guy. And he was in the office next to me, and he used to come in every day. And so I would tell him everything I know. This is how you should structure your week. This is what I'm doing Monday, Tuesday. So he did it. And I've never seen a guy actually take the advice, and every day he did the same thing. Everything I told him to do, he did it. And he wasn't on my team or anything. He was just another guy that was working at the company. And I went to see a friend of mine who owns a broker shop here in town. We just had lunch in his office, and that guy's working at his company now.
No kidding.
And so he came out of his office and he's like, Joey, oh my God, I haven't seen you. And like, all these guys are standing there. He's like, this guy's the GOAT. And I'm like, no, I'm not the GOAT. He goes, no, he trained me. So he's doing 6 to 7 deals a month on his own right now.
Wow.
And just, it's one of those success stories that, you know, enjoy the ride, because it can be a great ride if you let it be, but you have to put the work in, and you've got to put the little steps in. So that would be my biggest piece of advice is, if you're coming in this business, be prepared to eat top ramen maybe for a year, unless you've got a little nest egg put away, and just it's basic block and tackle. If you start taking the shortcuts, that's when you're gonna see your success start going down, because it's the little block and tackle steps that if you do those, you can't miss.
Yeah. And to add to that, find a guy who's really good at it and do everything he says.
Yeah.
There it is.
Find that guy and do exactly what he tells you to do. I mean, that's what growth is all about.
Well, Joey, thank you. This has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate you sharing your insights and some personal information about you. And
Absolutely.
This was great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.